following is a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about them Cowboys?
Yeah!
Go Cowboys!
Let's go, baby!
Are you ready for a break?
Yes.
Are you ready for a break?
Absolutely.
Ready for a break?
Yeah, and so much for that.
It's time for The Break on DallasCowboys.com.
We were on the break!
With Ambar Garcia, Brian Broaddus, Nick Harris, and Derek Eagleton.
It is Thursday, September 12th, 2024, Season 20, Episode number 28. Welcome to the latest edition of The Break. We are live from SWBC Mortgage Studios at the Star, presented by LG. LG is the world's #1 OLED TV brand for 11 years and counting. See why at lg.com/OLED Evo. How's everybody doing today?
Doing well.
Excellent.
Doing well.
We rolling?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Good. We are into week 2 of the NFL season. There's going to be a game tonight, and so the NFL is really cranking up. We'll get into our normal groove here. Yesterday we talked about the Saints offense versus the Cowboys defense. Today we're going to flip that around. We'll get into that a little bit later in the show. But first things first, we got to talk about injuries. There's an interesting injury list for the Cowboys and even more injuries for the New Orleans Saints. Let's start first with the Cowboys, though. Jake Ferguson and John Stevens both out of practice for knee and hamstring injuries, respectively. Talk to me about what we're expecting there and obviously what happens if those tight ends are not available.
Yeah, we were able to talk to Jake Ferguson in the locker room yesterday and just kind of get his perspective on the injury that happened on Sunday. And he said whenever it initially happened, he thought it was an ACL. And I was talking to some people that were coming off the field on Sunday. They felt the same way. But then those initial testing and everything came back. He tweeted out, God is good. And that's what it's looking like right now. But still some rehabbing that he's going to have to do going into the week. Obviously missed practice yesterday. He wasn't even out on the field. So they're trying to work him in a smart way to get him back on the field. But with that being said, I personally, I don't feel like he plays on Sunday, just given the nature of the injury and the typical time frame that it takes to recover from those kinds of things. We've seen it in the past where it's more of a 2 to 3 week type deal. Granted, it's Jake Ferguson, so he could be back by the following week against the Ravens, but I think pushing it against the Saints, I think it might be a close timeline for him. And then you mentioned John Stevens Jr., when I talk to people, and I think Brian feels the same way, he's mentioned it as well, there's a little bit more concern with John Stevens playing on Sunday than there is with Jake Ferguson. Granted, still concerned with both, but John Stevens still working through that hamstring injury. We saw him out on the cords yesterday with Britt Brown, so trying to work back from that. But if they're down 2 tight ends, I mean, we talked about it a little bit, there's going to be a lot of moving around that they're going to have to do at that position. But then also Marshawn Kneeland was out yesterday with a calf injury, was not on the practice field, so we'll probably learn a little bit more about that in Mike McCarthy's press conference.
Yeah, before we get too far into Kneeland, how much does that set back the offense if you don't have those 2 tight ends available to you on Sunday?
I feel like, though, that where in watching the Saints, and we'll get into it, I kind of feel like, though, that if you had your tight ends in this game, you could take advantage of the Saints and the way they play their coverages. They're really, and I don't know this is if they were just because Carolina has a second-year quarterback, but they were super aggressive with the way that they blitzed this kid. And the majority of their blitzes, and maybe they're worried a little bit, too, about their pass rush, that they had to bring corners and slots, and there was a lot safeties. There was a lot going on here, and I kind of feel like that if you have these tight ends, if you have a Ferguson or somebody like that, and you're dealing with Tyrann Mathieu and guys like that, and Will Harris, that you want to kind of get these guys, and you want to make them have to play and cover a little bit. So. I think it hurts Dallas in that way because the secondary for the Saints, I don't think it's nearly as good as what we saw last week in Cleveland, but they've got a couple guys, depending on what happens with Marshawn Lattimore. We'll get into that a little bit more with his injury and stuff like that. Adobo, the other corner there, I kind of feel like that maybe – there's some opportunity here, but these safeties are kind of an area that I would like to really trying to attack if I could.
Yeah, absolutely. And we know just overall how important the tight end position is for the quarterback like Dak. So that's always unfortunate, but they do have guys that can still help in there. But the good thing is, I think Dallas does have some favorable matchups, and you still have some really, really good receivers on the offense that you can really try to take advantage of. And still, with the running game, that's still a question mark because I don't think we truly have a good sense of what the running game for Dallas is at the moment. But I think that the Saints defense, and we'll get into it, Brian will do his scouting report, but it seems like overall, it might be a matchup where the Cowboys still have the upper hand despite being down at tight end.
Yeah, it could be the Hunter Lipke. That's where they can get around. With playing with him as that, the attached player, the move guy, the H, the fullback. Maybe you jump into some of those. You play with Schoonmaker and Span Ford, but the third tight end is going to be Hunter Lipke and how he plays. So I have a feeling that, but man, this Saints bunch at the safety spot, if you had somebody that could play vertically, because they play a lot of single high stuff, and maybe it had to do with Carolina, that they knew that they could overwhelm Bryce Young. But if you're going to play a lot of single high, man, that's where it seems like that Ferguson has that ability to get up the seam, and then you can hit some plays up there that way.
This game will tell me a lot about Schoonmaker. He is a second-round pick. He had a red shirt year last year. Effectively, didn't play as well as we all wanted him to. As a second-round pick. But now you're in your second year, and
luckily he's healthy now as of today.
Yeah, and he's healthy, and this is a game where it looks like maybe they're going to need him, and so this is a good opportunity to see where is he, and I think we'll have a lot to talk about on Monday from the standpoint of the tight end position if those two guys don't play, because Schoonmaker's going to be asked to do more.
He's going to be asked to do a lot more in this game, and it's where the these edges, linebackers, safeties, there's some opportunities here with this defense. It's I think the challenge you faced last week was pretty stiff, and this one it's got its areas where you can take advantage of some things, but you have to take advantage. You can't let these guys get off the hook, with some of the things that they're trying to do. They're really trying to scheme and play around some of their lack ofs. With the way their scheme is. So, but you need to be on the screws for this one.
Yeah, and this is still a strong pass rush for the Saints unit. I mean, you look at Cam Jordan, they bring in Chase Young. Granted, he's more of a rotational guy behind Carl Granderson, and that might be a name that a lot of fans don't know, but 8.5 sacks last year. Yeah. He was really productive for the Saints. So I think whenever you factor in potentially giving Tyler Guyton some help around the edge, you factor in a guy like Luke Schoonmaker, who's going to have to be doing a lot of that chipping, doing a lot of that pushing around, even in the run game too, helping out on both sides, but whether it be Guyton or Steele. These are big guys that they have around the edge, Cam Jordan and Carl Granderson. So there's going to have to be some bodies attached to them.
How much do you lose, or do you lose anything from the standpoint of blocking when you talk about somebody like Span Ford that might now have a lot more reps?
Yeah, I think Span Ford, this could be an opportunity for him as well, like you said. And I think whenever we identified him coming out of the University of Minnesota, he was this blocking specialty type tight end. And I think that was kind of the thought process in bringing him in as one of the highest paid undrafted free agents around the league. They gave him the most guaranteed money of all undrafteds out of the league. I think whenever you put him into this offense this week without a Jake Ferguson and without a John Stevens Jr., he's going to be asked to do a whole lot, not only in the blocking game, but also in the receiving game. He wasn't really asked to do a lot of that at the University of Minnesota. Granted, we did see him at the Senior Bowl line up and do a lot of different red zone things, and he really took advantage of those opportunities.
He's a big body for sure.
He is a big body. Yeah. I think you could work that in red zone situations, but how comfortable is he doing that? I didn't see a ton of reps during training camp, him working in the red zone, so how much application of knowledge will have to be applied this week specifically for him. I think that's something to keep an eye on moving forward, but those are going to be the two tight ends that they call upon. You'll probably anticipate a Princeton Fant elevation. You would need to use him in some blocking situations, and then like you said, Hunter Lipke is also an option.
You mentioned Marshawn Nealon being out yesterday for practice with a calf injury. Talk to me about what the Cowboys do if he can't play. When you look at someone like Tyra Sweet, Chauncey Golston, do you bring up a Carl Lawson? Like, where do you think they go there?
I was told that I asked about Nealon's injury. I said concern, and appeared to say it wasn't bad.
Okay.
So hopefully he will be able to go. But we've had these moments before with the calf. We're not worried, and all of a sudden we get to the end of the week and the guy just can't go. And so, but initially it was, hey, we should be okay here. Okay, well, let's see. We're going to have another couple of days, 3 days here, to kind of figure all this out. But yeah, it could be, Carl Lawson could be the elevation there. They've got to find Wheat. He was primarily a special teams guy last week. You have to get him involved. We talked about yesterday, you get a rookie left tackle for the Saints, and then with Penny on the other side, he's a guy that kind of can give up some pressure. When you watch him play as a left tackle, he wasn't very good. And right side, there were some pressures, that Carolina was able to generate over him on that right side. So anything over there that is against that right side, I think is good. If it's Wheat or Lawrence, Parsons, anybody that they want to take off that right side, I think can cause some problems.
Yeah, and I think you could look for a Carl Lawson elevation, like you mentioned, Derek. I think there's still confidence in Lawson. Just really didn't find a roster spot that made sense for him going into this season, but he's still a guy that's here at practice every day, and if there's an injury to that edge unit, he's going to be the first one called upon.
All right, let's talk about the Saints. They had 5 guys that did not practice yesterday. I'm going to run off these names. Let me know which ones you think are most important to keep an eye on from the standpoint of how much of an impact it would be to the Saints if they didn't have them. You had cornerback Marshawn Lattimore, a really good player, obviously. Safety Tyrann Mathieu, guard Lucas Patrick, defensive tackle Kalen Saunders, and linebacker DeMarco Jackson.
I think I would start with Lattimore, because if you go back and you watch the time that CeeDee Lamb played against Lattimore, I think there were 3 targets, 1 catch for 3 yards. There was an interception, and against everybody else, I think that CeeDee Lamb was 8 for 84 or 85. When it came to, it was remarkably different, the amount of space that CeeDee Lamb was able to generate and the receptions that he was able to grab by not playing against Lattimore. That means that Kool-Aid McKistry, if you watch the draft show, I think a lot of you did out there, that we talked about McKistry a lot from the University of Alabama. He came in last week and actually did a pretty good job. There were 3 targets, I believe, his direction. There was only 1 reception. He's a very talented player. I was surprised he went in the 2nd round. Kind of a bunch of us thought he would probably be a first-round player. Alabama had a couple of cornerbacks, and he was one of the more talented ones that they had. So he stepped in and did a pretty nice job. But if you take Lattimore off this defense, I think that's pretty significant for them.
Yeah, I'll give you a close runner-up in the fact that Lucas Patrick starting left guard, that's definitely a one to keep an eye on as the week moves forward. They don't have a ton of interior depth. A lot of teams do not have a lot of interior depth. So this could be a situation
It's interesting
where,
the Cowboys do.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Well, Landon Young was his backup, and there's clearly a drop-off between Patrick and Young when you watch them play.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'm just shaking my head because I'm like, some things just don't say it, because then that's when things happen. Unfortunate things happen. So, man, as soon as you said that, I'm like,
when it
You got
comes,
depth right
please.
now. Yeah, that could change quickly,
Yeah.
right?
when it does come to the Saints practice schedule this week, I think something just to keep an eye on. Players were sent home early yesterday in anticipation of Hurricane Francine making landfall. They were all out of the facility by about 2 p.m., so they were able to complete practice, but team meetings and everything got cut pretty short.
Yeah.
And then with heavy flooding in Jefferson Parish last night, that's where a lot of players do live down there. And then the causeway is causing some issues up in Mandeville. I think just kind of keep an eye on the practice schedule this week for the Saints. There could be some things that are moved around quite a bit with them because of that storm.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing. And Brian, you and I were talking yesterday before we went on the air. I'm sure you've had some experience with it. But when you talk about teams having to prepare under really difficult circumstances, when life starts to life, right? And you got these things outside of your control that are not about football, that are affecting your life, and obviously then your ability to be able to do your job. How do you prepare for that? And what have you seen in your experience, Brian, particularly in how teams manage that and how players respond to it?
Yeah, the thing as an organization, you have to be very mindful that your players are human and they have families. A lot of them have their wives, their kids, their girlfriends. Maybe mom, dad are there, living with them now. They're taking care. And your first thing is, okay, you're thinking about your job. But as an organization, you have to be very mindful of this. And that's the one thing that the Saints are very mindful of because they live it every year. Hurricane season hits. Down in Miami, they deal with the same thing. Hurricane season hits, and then you have to be, So the organization usually has a really good plan for, okay, listen, we're going to take care of your families. This is what we're going to do. If you guys have to go early, if say you have to get on a plane and get out of here to go play this game, please don't worry about your families. We'll get everybody taken care of. We'll get them bussed out. We'll get them hoteled up. Everything will be fine that way. And so that takes a lot of pressure off the players to have to deal with that. They're like, okay, I don't have to worry about moving my mom, my dad, or moving my wife and the kids out of here. We can take care of that. So it is difficult because we all talk about when we get into, and you brought it up when we came in, the routine, the creatures of habit, where every week you get into a routine, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, every day there's what you have to do, and then you do it for like 18 weeks. And so when you throw somebody off that schedule, it could be very, very difficult. The league tried to do it the other day with sending Green Bay and Philadelphia to Brazil on a 9-hour flight, and then turn around and play. Green Bay's got to play a noon game this week after playing So the league will do that. Well, the Cowboys, heck, I mean, how many times you guys played 3 games in 11 days? Yeah, I mean, you just get used to it. Don't complain. You just show up. You practice for 2 days or a day, and then you go play. And so teams are accustomed, but there's, like I say, there's some organizations that are really good at helping their players just have that level of comfort that know that their families are taken care of while they're practicing.
Yep. All right, we're going to take our first break. We'll come back. We'll jump into this New Orleans defense versus the Cowboys offense. We'll do that in a moment. This is DallasCowboys.com radio.
Todd thought it would be secure to jog in the cheetah savanna. Todd believed the big cat repellent he bought online was reliable. And now, Todd is trying to be faster than this cheetah that can run 80 miles per hour. But the good news is, Todd has AT&T 5G that is fast, reliable, and secure. And he learned the best thing to do is stop running and toss her the backpack with the beef stew. AT&T 5G. Fast, reliable, secure.
5G requires compatible plan and device. 5G may not be available in your area. See att.com/5G for you for details.
If you can't be at the stadium, there's no better way to watch your Cowboys than on an LG OLED Evo TV. That's because everything you see is more lifelike. Every play, every hit. I mean, you might as well be on the sidelines. That's how clear it is. It's all thanks to LG's legendary technology. Perfect black, over 8.3 million self-lit pixels. No one comes close. LG OLED Evo is the best TV in the game for a reason. See for yourself at lg.com/OLED Evo.
Don't put off getting your oil change, Dallas. Take 5 Oil Change, a proud partner of the Cowboys, is faster than you think. There's no appointment needed and no waiting room. Yep, you heard that correctly. Take 5 is so fast, you don't even have to get out of your car. You can take advantage of Take 5's fast, friendly, and simple service at any of their locations across the Dallas area. And remember, at Take 5, you stay in your car because they're faster than you think. Take 5, the official oil change of the Dallas Cowboys.
If you shout, "How about them Cowboys?" you have that undeniable passion that's the heart of Cowboys Nation. And if you like to drink Dr. Pepper, you love the unique blend of its 23 flavors. Together, your one-of-a-kind fandom paired with the one-of-a-kind taste of a delicious ice-cold Dr. Pepper is the game day lineup that can't be beat. Better yet, gather your Cowboys and Dr. Pepper fan friends to watch the next game and crack open a delicious ice-cold Dr. Pepper for everyone. The wins will be even tastier. It's a Pepper thing.
Life doesn't stop when the economy is uncertain. The market might not care you have a wedding to plan or a kid to put through school. And inflation doesn't know you've got a family to feed. But Bank of America does, and is here to help. With digital tools to help you save and local experts nearby, you can keep life moving forward the way you need it to. Bank of America. What would you like the power to do? Learn more at bankofamerica.com. Bank of America N.A., member FDIC, equal credit opportunity lender.
Back to the break.
LG OLED Evo is the best TV in the game, but don't take our word for it. Digital Trends said the LG OLED G4 has the best picture quality they've ever seen. See it for yourself at lg.com/OLED Evo.
Welcome back. Second segment of the break, live from SWBC Mortgage Studios. At the start of the segment, is brought to you by blockchain.com. All right, Brian, let's go. Let's talk Cowboys offense versus New Orleans defense. Let's start with a big picture question.
Yeah.
Tell me the greatest strength of this defense,
Yeah.
and then tell me the greatest weakness of this defense.
I'll tell you, it's the very small sample size of the Carolina game. And to me, the strength of it was their ability. And I haven't seen a team do this in a while, but they're not afraid to get their secondary involved with blitzing. And Nick and I we were all talking about the pass rush with Granderson, and then you bring in you bring in others to Chase Young, guys like that, and Cam Jordan. I mean, they've got some guys that you would think are like legitimate pass rushers, and they do. Those you see those guys get involved, but I was shocked of how much, and I don't know this because I don't know if it's just that Dennis Allen decided that Bryce Young can't handle pressure from the secondary. He can't read it. He can't see it. He's not going to get his guys in the right spot. He's not going to move a blocker. He moves a blocker over from the left to the right, and they run the blitz from the left, and he gets sacked from the second. And you're like going, wait a minute, why did you just move? And what happened is the blocker, the back on the right side, does nothing, blocks nobody. It's kind of like he was looking, and the actual blitz came from his left. So I don't know if Dennis Allen in this game, in a strength of slot blitz, safety blitz, combinations of blitzes, I don't know if he's going to do this to Dak Prescott or even try to do this to Dak Prescott. Because in this game, I mean, you look at this was a metrics thing. And the great thing about us and our ability to watch tape and then go look at things, and this just was jarring to me. And the Saints had 5 off-ball players generate a pressure versus the Panthers in this game. Wow. Overall, the Saints sent 12 different players who did not play edge or defensive tackle on blitzes. 8 pressures on 14 blitzes, 57% of the time. They blitzed on third down. That was their big blitz down, was third down.
Yeah. That's got to be
Think about
Bryce
that,
Young, though, right?
Think about that, though.
Yeah.
Is this a first game trend, or every week are we going to really dial things up? And if you're sending that much secondary pressure, are you worried about your pass rush? Because what happened is you go back and you watch the guys that were getting the pressure, though. Chase Young was the one that had the most pressures in the game. Granderson is a good rusher. Jordan's a good rusher, but they didn't generate the pressure that Chase Young did as the edge. They had their nickel had 3 sacks in this game. 4 rushes, 3 sacks from their nickel. That's a slot player.
Yeah.
And so you're going, there's no way in hell they do this to Dak Prescott.
Right. But that's also where, I guess, when I'm thinking about it, my question would be...
You were asking me what the strength... And it was, I don't know, because I'm thinking, damn, if this is something that they're going to go in every week feeling like we're not going to create enough, you would think that they across the front that they could generate pressure on this Carolina defensive line. You would think that.
Yeah.
But they found something that, like, well, this kid can't read. He can't read blitzes.
Right, which that's my point. Like, Dak Prescott is a veteran quarterback.
Yeah.
You would think they wouldn't go into with a
And
game
mobile.
plan like that against a veteran quarterback,
Right.
because he will eat you alive. If you're sending all those, there's going to be somebody open. And you got a dangerous guy like CeeDee Lamb on the outside. You got other playmakers in this offense. Like, to me, that's just like you got a running back that can pick up the blitz, and then you're exposed.
Yeah.
Right?
I want to offer 2 points of, I think, optimism from that point, Brian, is since that Dak Prescott, whenever he is escaping the pocket and getting out and extending plays, we saw him really succeed doing that last year in this Mike McCarthy offense. I think it was an emphasis going into last year. We talked so much about the footwork at training camp and being able to escape the pocket. That's a big part of that. Being able to step up in the pocket, that's a big part of that. I think also the second point is, and Mike McCarthy mentioned this yesterday in his press conference, he was asked about how can you evaluate based off one game. And he said in the Saints specific case, whenever he's looking at the Saints defense, the personnel is pretty much the same going back to last season. And I think if you identify, what they did under Dennis Allen last year with the personnel that they had in place, only 36 sacks last year, 28th in the NFL. So I think whenever you look at it from a pressure standpoint and you take last week in a vacuum and try to understand it, I think it said more about Carolina than it did about New Orleans, With that being said, like I mentioned earlier, there are some big pass rushers on this defensive line.
Yeah.
And I think if you're looking at power guys and you're understanding
Yes.
where Tyler Guyton is in his career, where you understand where Cooper Beebe is in his career, even Terrence Steele in some instances, power could be an area of concern. But I do feel comfortable with guys like Ezekiel Elliott being able to pick up blitzes, Dak's ability to be able to escape the pocket. I don't think they're going to have as many issues as Carolina did last week.
Yeah, you would think that maybe they're looking at this like last year we generated no sacks.
Yeah.
And so I would maybe we're not going to get off once again. The thing about if all of a sudden they
Do you remember where they ranked last year?
28th. Yeah. They just but in this game I was sitting there I was thinking like, okay, Jordan, Young, those guys, they're just going to overpower. Carolina just can't block these guys. And for the most part, there were, like I say, Young had a good game rushing the passer. Chase Young, we remember him from the Commanders. I mean, he was a highly selected guy.
Number one overall, right?
Was he
number one or two?
Number one, yeah. And was he 1 or 2? Was he 2?
I'll double check this.
I thought he was 2 in that
It
draft.
might have been.
Yeah.
But he was up there.
Yeah. I don't think
sure.
the Commanders had the first overall pick. I think he was number 2.
Two.
Yeah.
2, okay.
Okay.
Good work, Brian.
Well,
He's
You're
a
the draft
draft show guy.
You're the draft guy.
I can't remember what I had for breakfast. I mean,
But you remember that.
I remember that one because there were some quarterbacks in that draft. That was one of those that
21.
was. Yeah, there was. I think there was some guy. They passed on. They passed on a guy or two there. But anyway, the thing about it that with the Saints, I just kind of feel like that they're taking a more aggressive approach when and Nick's right about the guys they have, the names they have. But this one was one of those kind of like, is this a one-time thing or is this an all-time thing? But they play a ton of man coverage. I mean, that is something that they're going to line up and again they might not respect what Carolina had at receiver. Mm-hmm. But they're a team that if you look at the numbers say, okay, was this something they've done before? The last 2 years. Big, heavy press man coverage team. Mm-hmm. So, I think the respect was there. But Carolina in press man coverage only had 5 completions against them in this game when they played press. So, you're going to gamble here. If to me, I'm always give me the quick death. I don't want slow death. If I'm a defense, just give me the quick. If it's if we gamble, I think this team gambles. I think this is going to be their identity. I think they're going to gamble on coverage because you'll see them at times. It's crazy to believe this, but here they are bringing a blitz, and they got a linebacker. They've got a receiver in the slot and a linebacker playing inside, and they're showing linebacker inside like in the B gap. And they bring the slot and they run the linebacker all the way to the outside to try and cover a vertical, Thielen. Thielen is running a route from the slot. He looks out, and there's nobody in front of him. It's like they're in like a little tight little twins look. Yeah. And Thielen's like, are you going to throw me the ball when I'm running up the field here? Because there's nobody in front. They took their inside linebacker, B gap, and ran him all the way to try and take Thielen on a vertical route.
There's no way they can do that with CeeDee Lamb.
You're sitting there thinking, Dak, you try that. Dak is going to find that. Boop, there you go, right there.
I think that's also where you have some hope that Jake Ferguson plays in this game.
That's exactly what I was thinking. So anything, because these safeties, the thing, I love Tyrann Mathieu because he's my LSU brother and stuff like that. But the thing with Tyrann Mathieu is still where Tyrann Mathieu will help the Saints. He creates turnovers. He's a come up to you tackle and you're like, boop, punch the ball out guy. Mm-hmm. Or he's always trying to, and he knocked the ball. Here, they get a nice little run. What's Tyrann Mathieu? Come up to him, boop, punch the ball out. That's what he's always been. Yep. That guy that's around. Yeah, so all of a sudden, if you're one of these guys, if you're Cooks, you're Lamb, you're catching the ball, and all of a sudden Matthew's there, just don't give up the turnover that way. Yeah. But their defense, it might be just because of Carolina, but I think they're going to. They've got an aggressive side to it this year. They sure do.
We're going to take our final break. We'll come back. Got more questions for you on this defense and a few on the Cowboys offense and how they particularly match up. We'll do that when we come back. DallasCowboys.com radio.
It's the official men's skincare brand of the Dallas Cowboys, Jack Black. And right now, Cowboys fans can get 15% off their $75 order. Plus, because every deal needs a playmaker, your order will include a free 5-piece skincare set and free shipping. The Jack Black Playmaker is 4 of Jack's favorites and a full-sized intense therapy lip balm. Make a play for the Playmaker at getjackblack.com/Cowboys with the code CowboysVIP. That's getjackblack.com/Cowboys with the code CowboysVIP.
They say champions are remembered, but legends are never forgotten. United Ag and Turf offers a winning lineup of John Deere equipment built to tackle any challenge on and off the field. Legendary John Deere tractors, combines, residential mowers, commercial mowers, compact construction equipment, Gator utility vehicles, and a full line of golf and sports turf equipment. United Ag and Turf, the official Ag and Turf equipment supplier of the Dallas Cowboys. Visit UnitedAgAndTurf.com to find a location near you.
If you can't be at the stadium, there's no better way to watch your Cowboys than on an LG OLED Evo TV. That's because everything you see is more lifelike. Every play, every hit. I mean, you might as well be on the sidelines. That's how clear it is. It's all thanks to LG's legendary technology. Perfect black, over 8.3 million self-lit pixels. No one comes close. LG OLED Evo is the best TV in the game for a reason. See for yourself at lg.com/OLED Evo.
From the field to the festivities, Lucchese embodies the essence of luxury and tradition. Handcrafted with meticulous precision, each pair offers unmatched comfort and style. Stand tall while you're tailgating or cheering in the stands with the Dallas Cowboys collection by Lucchese. Shop the collection today at the Lucchese store at the Star in Frisco or online at lucchese.com. Lucchese, the official boot of the Dallas Cowboys and Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders.
Todd thought it would be secure to jog in the cheetah savanna. Todd believed the big cat repellent he bought online was reliable. And now, Todd is trying to be faster than this cheetah that can run 80 miles per hour. But the good news is, Todd has AT&T 5G that is fast, reliable, and secure. And he learned the best thing to do is stop running and toss her the backpack with the beef stew. AT&T 5G. Fast, reliable, secure.
5G requires compatible plan and device. 5G may not be available in your area. See att.com/5G for you for details.
Back to the break.
Go ahead, by all means.
Go for it.
Go.
AT&T.
And then? What does the AT&T do?
Connecting.
Changes.
Everything.
There we go.
Right.
Look at us.
There we go.
I just guessed.
We connected.
Is it everything?
We connected.
Welcome back.
I almost said, they're great. Give the old Tony the Tiger. They're great.
Welcome back. Final segment of the break. Live from SWBC Mortgage Studios at the Star. We're presented by LG. Let's talk a little bit more about this Dallas offense versus New York defense. Brian, do you have something real fast?
No, I was asking Chuba Hubbard.
Yeah.
Do you think they have, the running game at Carolina? We were talking about Carolina.
In the break,
They have enough talent for Bryce Young.
It's Chuba. I don't think he's a consistent runner. But I think whenever they do get Brooks back healthy, I don't think there's an excuse for Bryce Young after that.
Okay. I like you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't love their talent, but
it was hard to watch.
Hard for him,
It was hard to watch.
Yeah.
And I, like you said, I've never seen him play that poorly. And you know all the way back to high school how he played. And I'd never believed that he was going to play this poorly.
Me neither.
I just know how he played against my Longhorns when he was at Bama.
Yeah.
That game, the Longhorns should have won, but for Bryce Young.
You know what's funny? He was talking about
duck
that.
that
play.
He was talking about the corner blitzes or the nickel blitzes. He's like, I just don't think he has. I don't think he has trouble with that. And I was like, there was one time he did.
Yeah, he did.
I can tell you that right
He
now.
made a play.
He made a play.
Why do you think the Saints did with I was just curious now, real quick. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to hijack your segment. But why do you think the Saints played him the way they did? Is it they don't think he can?
I mentioned this in the break. This is the first time in his career he's not had an offensive line that can protect him, and I don't think he knows how to play with that. That's a real thing for quarterbacks, and I think it's understated at times because it's kind of the cliche. Oh, he doesn't have protection, so it doesn't work. I really think that's the problem with Bryce Young because whenever you're having to escape the pocket 2.5 seconds after the snap, whether you have protection or not, you're immediately going to have that anxious feeling. Unless it's a snap throw, you have the anxious feeling whenever you have to dissect and read. speed. And I think that's the problem because you see the happy feet in the pocket with him. You never saw that at Mater Dei or at Alabama. So
I feel like the more you mess up, the more it gets into your head.
Absolutely. That's
over
and
over and over
and
again.
I think they probably wanted to overwhelm him. Like, you're coming into a new season, you know the talent that he had coming out of college. You're like, you don't want him to get comfortable on you.
Right.
So you say send everything at him. And by the way,
they made Carr comfortable playing defense.
I mean, that's the point. Like, you just send everything at him, and as after what they did last year or not did, what they didn't do when it came to pass rush last year, it was a good thing to put on tape. Now teams have to account for the fact that they may be sending pressure from a lot of different points. I'm sure there's a lot of time the Cowboys are going to spend this week thinking about, hey, what about the corner? What about the safety? What about the backer? Like, you got to think about all those things now after that game.
Do you feel like, though, that into this game that you're gonna gamble like we were talking about, safety in the linebacker in the A, going to carry a slot wide receiver? Do you think it's one of those things you say against Dak, you have to do it because we're going to get home before they adjust?
I mean,
it's the slow death versus the fast death.
I would say look at the pass play, the touchdown play to Cooks.
Yeah,
they got it. They got
had
the
a
pressure.
bust inside.
Yep, they got the pressure. And guess what? Dak, oh my God, off the back foot, touchdown. Like, that's what you got to worry about.
Something about that touchdown is a little off topic. I apologize. Something about that touchdown, that was a product of timing. That touchdown pass does not happen if CeeDee Lamb is running that route. Whenever you look at the timing and certain things that they tried with CD and Dak at times in Sunday's game.
Are you saying because they haven't had the time of the work?
10 targets, 5 receptions. There was not a lot of complex route running schemes run by CeeDee Lamb. But you see that instance with Brandon Cooks. He hadn't even broke when Dak threw that ball. And he knew exactly where Cooks was going to be. He was wide open, and it worked out for a touchdown. We've seen that route how many times over the course of the last month and a half? I think that's just a product of really good timing and a quarterback-receiver connection right now.
I think having Thornhill out there, I'd thrown that ball up too.
That's fair.
That guy looked like he was watching a home run. Like Aaron Judge slammed one over his head. He's just kind of sitting there in the outfield, like, okay, it's a home run. I'm not moving.
Speaking of CeeDee Lamb, how much do you guys expect that he'll have a full clip this week, and that connection would improve this week over last week?
I think whenever we look up here, before the Ravens game, I would expect Dak and CD to be 100% by then. But I think right now, going into the Saints week, I'm probably anticipating about 80, 85, just because that timing is a real thing. And yes, Dak Prescott could say, hey, it's only going to take a couple practices for us to get back in the rhythm of things. But those guys probably worked out, you could count on your two hands, over the course of the offseason. Obviously hasn't had CD implemented in the offense since January. It's going to take some time to get back up to speed. Granted, now we're looking up about 3 weeks since he signed that deal. So I think whenever we're looking at going into the Ravens game, that's when we should start seeing some of this complex route running schemes come back, and that's where he's doing the double moves. That's where he's, Dak is trusting where the ball placement is going to be because he trusts where CD is going to be. I didn't necessarily see that against the Browns. Oddly enough, the route that worked the best for CD and Dak last year was just a pure slant route. Yeah, and they relied on that in the Browns game, as they should have. But you can also see that they're falling on their weapons that they know will work. But you also have to mix it up with some things. That's with anything, but I think if they mix it up a little bit more and they're able to implement some double moves and get CD open on some slant and then break out to a corner, or slant and break out to a post, I think there's going to be some opportunities to really open up this offense.
Yeah, the guy you want to put him on is Alontae Taylor, the slot. He's the one. The last 2 years they've gone after this cat, and Carolina went after this guy too. He gave him a touchdown. He had 4 receptions. I think it was 7 targets. I was watching him play. I'm thinking, man, they're kind of picking on this dude. And went back and checked. They pick on this dude a lot. So if your routes are coming out of the slot, the stuff where you talk about the slant and the corners and things like that you want to run, maybe think about the Saints. Alontae Taylor, he's number 1. He's their nickel player. He's the one with 3 sacks. Maybe he's a better edge than he is a cover guy.
Well, looking at this game, they were pretty dominant over Carolina, both in the pass defense, and their rush defense, only allowing 135 yards passing, 58 yards rushing. Brian, from what you could tell, do you think this is a team that you would attack if you're the Cowboys? You attack them more with the run game or the pass game based on where you see deficiencies? I
kind of feel like that you throwing the ball against these guys might be okay. And I know that Nick has his concerns with the pass rush. I guess I would have concerns with the pass rush too if I thought every time I'm going to blitz a secondary guy, he's going to get home. But you find a way that the matchups are going to be about, can these Cowboys tackles hold up? in this game. Can, the Browns, I said earlier, the Browns defense was so much better than this defense. When you talk about the pressure and, the players that you have, there's some sneaky good players in this team, but I don't know, like I said, I've seen Chase Young before, rush wide, and then all of a sudden he decides to go inside, and he figured it out. He actually got a pressure there. Mm-hmm. But that's the thing about it is some of these guys get in a little bit of a rhythm rush, and then you can kind of deal with it. But if Dallas's tackles hold up well in this game, they can throw the ball.
I wouldn't necessarily say I have concerns with the pass rush. I think it's just more so identifying.
They're good players. No, you're not wrong. You're not wrong
this is a strength
about it.
here, and I think whenever you look at the rookies up front, they did a really good job against the Browns. That's a fact. Sure, Myles Garrett did make his presence felt on that one play, and by God, he did.
Yeah.
But I think whenever you look at the picture as a whole and how Tyler Guyton performed against those edge rushers, I'm comfortable going into New Orleans, understanding that he can play to that same level. I just think it's a strength of theirs that definitely should be identified. But I'm with you, Brian. I'm passing the ball if I want to win in this game.
See, the thing about it is with Guyton and hopefully the hands and the feet, after a while, we talked about it. He was in survival mode. And with these guys, I think he could breathe. These guys can rush. Don't get me wrong on this. These guys can rush, but it's not like dealing with Myles Garrett and even Smith. Those guys don't give you a breath. And I think with the Saints, they have some guys where technique, just play your technique, and you got a good shot at blocking these cats.
I think this is a game where Dak goes into feeling a lot more comfortable and confident because even going back to the game against the Browns where there was some pressure coming, Dak would sit still. Like, you didn't really see him kind of going out of the pocket and taking off. So I think that maybe this gives him more like, okay, it frees him up more to be more comfortable to anticipate those pressures and start using his running game because, again, he's healthy. He looks good. We know he can do it. He's done it before. Like you mentioned before, Nick, we've seen him get out of the pocket, run, and throw, and he has been very successful at connecting those passes with the receivers. He has very talented receivers. So I think this is an opportunity to maybe see him just a little bit more mobile.
Yeah, these linebackers, when you talk about Pete Warner and Demario Davis here. That last week's linebacker again, Cora Moore. These guys are run. These guys are a little bit later to the ball. I mean, they could be a tick late. There were a couple times where Carolina were able to get the ball inside and then make some, a lot of 4 or 5 yard runs, an 8 yard run, against this group. The linebackers are not going to make the number of plays that the Browns linebackers were. Those dudes were humming to the ball on the run.
Yeah, this is more of a blue collar group.
Yeah.
They do the dirty work. They get in there. They will make their presence felt. But I think it is a strong second level. But it's not what we saw from the Browns last week. They do have some young guys though that are pretty interesting in that second level too that we might see rotate in. Anthony Orji, he's a Rockwall product. Jalen Ford, he went to Frisco Lone Star. There was a couple of guys, and then DeMarco Jackson, while he was on the injury report, that's certainly a guy to keep an eye on too.
Yeah, we this week, based on what we've heard, Brian, you talk about with them using so many guys from the secondary on blitzes. Do you expect this is a game we'll see a lot more of Zeke Elliott in the backfield than that rotation, knowing that he is, I think, their best blitz pickup guy among the running backs that are on the roster?
Yeah, I think you would expect, if we're looking from a carries perspective, I think we're going to see a similar distribution. But as far as passing downs, I think you can anticipate Zeke Elliott being on the field a lot on third down.
Did you ask that question at a press conference?
Something like that.
Yeah, I thought so about that. Were you comfortable with the balance? And he was okay with that.
Yeah, man. Obviously, it's going to be they're going to need that if this is the way the Saints are going to be playing this year. Right. You're going to need that, which means the number of snaps, certainly going to favor
double
Zeke
meaning
a lot more.
Zeke and us eating.
Well, actually, so for those out there that don't know, and as a nod to the game against the Saints this week today in the training table, we are having gumbo. So if you know anything about me, you know I'm very excited about that.
And, 2 days I've been gone, and y'all had great meals these last 2
weeks. We're going to call it a wrap, man. So we get that andouille in there.
Exactly. So we can get over here and get some of this gumbo. All right, we appreciate you guys joining us. We're back tomorrow. We're going to wrap this thing up, get you guys ready for Cowboys versus Saints. Till then, for Nick Harris, Brian Broaddus, and Amber Garcia, I'm Derek Eagleton. This has been The Break, live on DallasCowboys.com radio.
This has been a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about this, Cowboys? Yeah!